So let's finally cut to the chase and get to the part I really want to talk about. Was the red wave a failure? No. While it has been disappointing compared to what we thought we would get out of it, there have been increasing gains. Not just slight gains, increasing gains. Not only does the Republican Party now hold a slight majority, but as the days roll by, there are more and more lawsuits, including the ones in Arizona, for the shenanigans involving their gubernatorial election. But really, whether it succeeded or failed, the midterms have done their job well as a barometer. We have seen for ourselves on multiple occasions what the overwhelm tactic on elections really does to influence voting. While it has indeed worked in 2016, the unfortunate truth is that the opposition has wised up and adapted to it, using less than honorable tactics. And the other unfortunate truth is that some of these tactics, including the way certain states run their votes, are going to take time to change. And they're certainly not going to change by 2024. And thus, as others have suggested, we need to adapt our strategy. You remember what I said about the 2016 election, where the Democrats hated the concept of an electoral college because it won Trump the presidency? We need to take a similar approach, where mail-in voting, early voting, ballot recovery, all these tactics are legal. We need to start using these things for ourselves. Not as an abandonment of principle, but rather to give the other side a taste of their own medicine. Only then, after the damage has been done, can we start reversing these insane policies and going back to what can be seen as more sensible. But the midterms were not just a barometer for voting tactics. They're also a barometer for the right wing. Not just the populist right wing, but the right wing in Washington, D.C. The ones who are actually appointed as part of the Congress or Senate. The ones who run the RNC. I said before that the rhinos that were around from a decade ago never really left. And it just goes to show that, in my opinion, the populist right and the classic left wing, not the woke left wing, have to start making a pact. They both need to come to a mutual realization that these neocons are their shared enemy. The atheist commentators from a decade ago who have not gotten with the program really need to know that the right wing that they hate and the right wing that represents Trump might not exactly be the same thing. Now, I do understand that because of the results for the midterms that people are disappointed, that people are just tired of all the nonsense while thinking it may never end. But another thing that really needs to be understood is that a lot of the pressure right now is gaslighting. From the blatant election theft to the recent purchase of Twitter, the globalists supposedly in control are currently in desperation mode. If it feels as though you should give up, that's probably because they want you to give up. It is true that it is silly to expect perfect results or even satisfactory results. But really, that has never been the point. Anyone who is actually against this authoritarianism should be just happy to be able to disrupt their grift. I also understand that there is some disappointment with Trump right now, with how silent he has been over the last few weeks, and how there is this supposed rivalry between him and Ron DeSantis, neither of whom I think should be contested against each other, nor do I think people should entertain which guy is better, when they'll just create division. I know he hasn't said anything, and I know about the whole NFT thing as well. But really, I think the reason for that works in tandem with why I feel I needed to make this speech. With all the scrutiny thus far, even during his own presidency, where the legislative branch would go out of its way to neutralize him as best as they could, it is clear, especially in the case of PR, that he cannot do this alone. Of course, if you have to play it safe, then you are going to self-censor yourself. It's not a good look, but I do understand where he's coming from. And so here's my New Year's resolution of sorts. And I'm really thinking that other people should take consideration into this too. Just as the Democrats have adapted their strategy in knowing to attack us on the day of election, just as I suggested we need to start using their tactics wherever legal to disrupt them, I also believe it is wise not to limit ourselves to just election year. 2023 is its own year. We don't know if it will be a good year, a bad year, or even an eventful kind of year. but using that time would be better than wasting that time. So here's what I have in mind for what we should do. For one, we need a more decentralized approach in terms of how we share information. Currently, I'm subscribed to those such as PSA Sitch, Liberal Hive Mind, Salty Cracker, Memology, Actual Justice Warrior, etc. for news. And definitely check them out if you have the time. But I also understand that if the average normal person doesn't have the time to check out their content or have been told not to check out their content because they bad, then they're not going to. It's like Horton Hears a Who, where all the tiny people have to scream just for one giant person to be able to barely hear them. So I believe that you, the listener, should take the time, even if just for a second, to go headlong with questions. Whether to contradict someone who you disagree with on some hot take they have or on some controversy. It doesn't have to be in a long rambling speech like mine. It could be just a little comment. Heck, as the disclaimer said at the beginning, I'm not a professional speaker. I personally don't usually take the time to do this sort of thing ever, but I thought I'd give it a try just to send out what I really feel. Ultimately, we need to be less merciful on our approach. We have to stop treating political topics like they're controversial subjects that they can never be talked about. If these things are truly important, they have to be talked about. If you're in an online chat and you can't just drop that sort of thing in polite conversation, then just drop whatever interesting news you find in some channel where you can drop it. If you know someone who is like-minded, even if you already agree with each other, you should probably at least spend a little time talking about these issues with them, just to know what the both of you are up against. And of course, as stated, don't worry so much about victory. Think about how much you'll disrupt these people trying to control you. In the recent Californian recall gubernatorial election, Gavin Newsom did win back his seat from Larry Elder, but not without a large cost, not without a lot of propaganda to keep the grand machine going. I'm also saying don't be a martyr. Don't fall into the trap of causing violent acts just to get attention. You don't even need to group up in front of a building. All that really matters is that you find people who are capable of having a nuanced discussion and turn them to your side. There are also people on the Republican ticket who have indeed won their place in the House or Senate, and I think it is very important to add extra scrutiny onto them. They advertise themselves as being for the populace, for the people, and thus we need to make sure that they hold on to that promise. If you don't care to take things seriously, then that's cool too. Just make parody of whatever nonsense is happening right now. Everyone with a sense of humor could use a laugh. And of course, if you're not sure what to do, just find someone who can at least inspire you. And maybe it's not for anything political. It could be any little thing like engineering. Just anything constructive. Not sure what to think is true or false in the face of conspiracy? Well, don't worry about that either. Just look for contradictions. Look for any time someone says something and then either does or says something else. That falsehood should immediately give you some clarity. We are never going to rid the world of busybodies or useful idiots or stooges in power. What matters is whether we can make them irrelevant. What matters is that we abandon feelings for the sake of truth and not the subjective truth. Will it be dangerous to democracy? Well, their democracy. But then again, these people don't acknowledge that America is a constitutional republic. And it's not like they follow the Constitution anyway. The world is never going to be fair, but let's try to make it fair anyway. Hold these people accountable. Look after yourself, your friends, and your family. Have a Merry Christmas and have a Happy New Year. Cheers.